Welcome back to the garage. It's time for another episode of Token Teardown. And if you're new here, this is where we drag crypto projects onto the lift, shine a shop light underneath, and tell you straight up whether you're looking at a real performance build or just a badge kit and a prayer. And today on the lift is EigenCloud. Now, yes, we will talk price. I know that's everybody's favorite lane. But before we even look at numbers, we've got to ask the real question. Does this thing actually deserve a spot in your hard-earned wallet? Because anybody can chase candles, especially that guy at the bar explaining why his latest coin is basically AI infrastructure now. You don't agree, but you respect the confidence. In this garage, we don't chase hype. We inspect. We diagnose. We see if the engineering matches the story. Quick shout out to Triple X, aka Christian. He's the one buried in white papers, crawling GitHub, and stress testing networks. So if something's hiding under the hood, we find it. Now smash like, hit follow, and share this with your fellow degens. We're building this channel one degen at a time. And if you've got a project you want us to throw on the left, drop it in the comments. It might be next. All right, back to the car. EigenCloud is the 2025 Audi S8 of crypto. Luxury on the surface, twin turbo underneath. Looks calm, moves different. Let's pop the hood and see if this thing's a real sleeper or just another badge with no bite. Let's get to work. Before we talk about what this machine does, we need to talk about who built it. Because in this garage, we don't trust buzzwords. We trust the people holding the wrenches. EigenCloud didn't come out of a hype house or a meme lab. It came out of real technical research and serious engineering discipline. At the center of it is Sriram Kannan, and that matters. This isn't a bull market founder shipping a token for vibes. He's a professor and researcher who spent years studying distributed systems, cryptography, and consensus, especially how systems break under stress. In plain English, this is the guy who studies failure first and designs so it doesn't happen. That mindset shows up everywhere in EigenCloud. The focus isn't just, can this work? It's what happens when this gets attacked, overloaded, or misused. Audi S8 analogy time. This isn't a tuner shop guessing boost levels. This is factory-grade engineering, knowing exactly how much pressure the system can take and building guardrails around it. And the backing matters too. EigenCloud attracted serious crypto funds, not because it sounded cool, but because it tackles one of the hardest problems in the space, scaling trust and verification without reinventing security every time. One thing Christian flagged early, and this is rare, they didn't start with a token or a marketing story. They started with a protocol, built first, tested assumptions, argued about risk, then talked vision. You see it in the culture. Less noise, fewer hype cycles, more GitHub commits, design docs, and honest discussions about failure modes. That's not marketing energy, that's engineering discipline. Back to the Audi S8 comparison. Sleeper builds don't brag. They don't rev at stoplights. They know what's under the hood and let performance speak later. So when you zoom out, the takeaway is simple. Deep technical credibility, a research-first mindset, and builders who understand that power without restraint is how systems collapse. Nothing here guarantees success. Nothing in crypto ever does, but it dramatically lowers the odds of catastrophic failure. And when you're dealing with infrastructure that touches other systems' security, that matters more than almost anything else. All right, pit crew checked. All right, now that we know who built this thing, let's talk about why the name changed, because this part actually matters, and it's way simpler than people make it sound. Originally, everything here was called EigenLayer. That was the original idea and the original product. EigenLayer is the core protocol built on Ethereum that introduced restaking, letting Ethereum's existing security be reused to protect other networks and services, without those systems needing to launch their own validators, tokens, or trust models. That was the engine. And at first, that's all this needed to be. But as the team kept building, they realized something important. Restaking wasn't the final destination. It was the first building block. What they were really unlocking was a way to make anything verifiable. Not just blockchains, data, computation, services, eventually even AI systems. At that point, calling the entire vision EigenLayer started to feel too narrow. It would be like calling Amazon AWS servers or calling a whole car the transmission. Technically correct, but missing the bigger picture. That's where EigenCloud comes in. EigenCloud isn't a replacement, it's the umbrella. EigenLayer stays exactly where it belongs, underneath everything as the security engine. EigenCloud is the broader platform that sits on top of it and explains what all that power is actually being used for. Think of it this way: EigenLayer is the engine. EigenCloud is the whole vehicle, and the Audi S8 analogy fits perfectly here. At first, people thought this was just about tuning the drivetrain, squeezing more performance out of Ethereum's security. But then it became clear the team wasn't just tuning parts. They were building a full performance platform designed for long-term dominance, not quick races. EigenCloud reframes the story from a restaking protocol into something much easier to understand: a verifiable crypto cloud. That means a world where developers don't have to reinvent trust every time they build something important. Instead of asking users to just trust the system, EigenCloud aims to let them prove what happened, what ran, what data was used, and whether the outcome is legitimate. That includes things like verifiable compute, verifiable data availability, verifiable services, and eventually verifiable AI agents. Not hype AI, not black box models, systems where you can actually check the work. And here's the key part that keeps this clean and honest: nothing broke. Nothing got abandoned. EigenLayer didn't disappear. The rebrand didn't change the engine. It clarified the destination. Christian summed it up perfectly during research. EigenLayer is what makes EigenCloud possible. But EigenCloud is what explains why EigenLayer exists in the first place. This wasn't a pivot away from Ethereum. It was a zoom out. Instead of saying, we help other chains borrow Ethereum security, the story became, we help the entire crypto ecosystem verify truth, computation, data, and behavior, using Ethereum as the root of trust. That's a much bigger ambition, and the quieter rollout actually makes sense. No loud hype cycle, no flashy rename, just a clearer name that matches what the system was already becoming. Same sleeper energy, same refined exterior. But now you understand, it's not just fast. It's built for the long highway. EigenCloud is the platform. EigenLayer is the foundation. And now that that's clear, we're finally ready to pop the hood and talk about how the engine actually works. Because none of this matters if the drivetrain can't handle the load. All right, now that we understand how the engine works, the obvious question is, who's actually using this thing? Because clean architecture doesn't matter if nobody shows up to drive it. Right now, EigenCloud is early, and that matters. This isn't a consumer app with millions of daily users. This is infrastructure, and infrastructure adoption always starts differently. The first users aren't retail. They're builders, specifically teams building systems that can't afford to be wrong. On the EigenLayer side, early traction is coming from projects that need strong, verifiable security, but don't want to spin up their own fragile validator sets. Things like data availability layers, Oracle-style services, middleware, and sequencing infrastructure. Places where trust me bro just doesn't cut it. For a regular person, think power plants and bridges, not food trucks. You don't notice them when they work, but everything breaks when they don't. For a coder, the signal is clear. Teams are using EigenLayer to avoid launching new tokens just for security, avoid bootstrapping validators from scratch, and avoid inventing new trust assumptions. Instead, they anchor to Ethereum and focus on building the product. That's a big deal because a lot of crypto projects didn't fail due to bad ideas. They failed because early security was weak. EigenLayer changes that equation. On the EigenCloud side, the vision expands beyond restaking. Builders here are working on verifiable compute, data verification, and systems where you need proof that something actually ran as claimed, including early work around AI agents and off-chain computation. Important point, This is not consumer AI hype. This is back-end verification, the kind enterprises and serious protocols care about. For a regular viewer, the takeaway is simple. This isn't about number go up apps yet. It's about laying rails so other things can be built safely on top. For builders, it's even clearer. Early adoption is coming from teams that understand threat models, slashing risk, and incentives, not from liquidity chasers. No hype cycles, no fake dashboards, just quiet integration and slow, deliberate progress, because the consequences are real. Audi S8 energy again. This isn't a drag race, it's long-distance engineering. And with that comes the next question, the uncomfortable one. What could go wrong? All right, now we get to the part most shows skip. What could actually go wrong? Because if you're going to talk about serious infrastructure, you don't get to pretend risk doesn't exist. The first and biggest risk with EigenCloud comes from the same place as its biggest strength, shared security. When multiple systems reuse Ethereum security through EigenLayer, they're also sharing consequences. If an AVS, one of those actively validated services, is poorly designed, has unclear rules, or sloppy slashing logic, honest validators could get punished for someone else's mistake. For a regular person, this is like agreeing to insure multiple buildings with one policy. If one building is badly wired and catches fire, everyone's premiums go up. For a coder, this is about slashing conditions and fault attribution. If responsibility isn't precisely defined, risk can leak across boundaries. That's why EigenLayer is extremely conservative about what gets onboarded and how rules are written. But that caution also slows things down. Second risk, complexity. This is not a simple system. There are more moving parts, more contracts, more edge cases. Complexity doesn't mean bad, but it does mean there's more surface area for bugs, misunderstandings, and operator error. For everyday users, complexity just means this isn't something you casually jump into. For operators and developers, it means documentation, tooling, and education matter a lot, and they're still evolving. Third risk, validator concentration and opt-in behavior. Because restaking is optional, not every validator will participate in every AVS. Some services may attract strong security. Others may struggle to get enough high-quality operators. That creates uneven guarantees across the ecosystem. In plain terms, not every road will be equally well paved at first. Fourth risk, governance and coordination. As EigenCloud grows, decisions about onboarding services, updating rules, and handling edge cases become more important and more political. Even with strong engineering, coordination failures can hurt momentum. This isn't unique to EigenCloud. It's a reality of any shared infrastructure, but it's something to watch. And finally, there's expectation risk. Because the vision is big, people may expect fast results. But infrastructure moves slowly by necessity. If expectations run ahead of reality, sentiment can swing even if the fundamentals are sound. That doesn't break the system, but it can shake confidence. Now here's the P-balancing point. None of these risks are hidden. None of them are being ignored. And none of them are the unknown unknowns that blindside projects. These are known, modeled, and openly discussed risks, which is exactly what you want at this layer of the stack. This isn't a toy, it isn't a meme, and it isn't pretending to be simple. EigenCloud is betting that doing hard things carefully beats doing easy things fast. And whether that bet pays off brings us to the question everyone's waiting for, the money question. How does this scale in a bigger market? What does success even look like? And where could value realistically land? All right, now let's talk about tokenomics. And before anyone's eyes glaze over, let's translate that. Tokenomics is just a fancy word for the fuel system. It tells you what the token does, how it moves through the system, when new fuel enters the tank, and whether the engine runs clean or floods itself. For EigenCloud, the fuel system revolves around the Eigen token, which operates alongside EigenLayer. Here's the most important thing to understand right away. Eigen is not gas, and it's not ETH. ETH is the fuel that powers Ethereum itself. Eigen is the control layer, the rules, coordination, and accountability system that makes restaking work safely. Think of ETH as gasoline. Think of Eigen as the engine management computer and the insurance policy. Now, let's break it down simply. Eigen exists to handle things ETH can't safely do on its own. When validators restake to secure additional services, not all failures are the same. Some risks are social, some are operational, some are logic errors that don't map cleanly to Ethereum's base slashing rules. Eigen is designed to absorb and manage those risks. It governs how AVSs are onboarded, how rules are enforced, and how penalties are applied without putting Ethereum itself at risk. For a regular person, Eigen is the referee and the safety system. For a coder, Eigen is a separate staking and slashing domain for non-consensus faults. Now, supply. Eigen has a fixed maximum supply. There's no infinite printing and no hidden emission tap. The supply was allocated across the ecosystem, early contributors, backers, and long-term security incentives. Nothing fancy, nothing sneaky. Now let's talk about unlocks, because this is where most people either panic or misunderstand what's happening. Eigen was not fully liquid on day one. Tokens unlock gradually over multiple years. That includes team allocations, early backers, and ecosystem incentives. Instead of one massive cliff where everything hits the market at once, EigenCloud uses staggered, mostly linear unlocks. Why does that matter? Because it reduces shock. It aligns incentives with long-term build-out. And it makes supply changes predictable instead of chaotic. For a regular viewer, there isn't one giant dump day circled on the calendar. For an analyst or builder, unlocks are transparent, modelable, and already part of serious risk calculations. Another important point, there are no fake yield gains here. Eigen isn't designed for passive farming or meme-style incentives. If you earn rewards, it's because you're doing real work, taking real responsibility, or participating in governance. And if you misbehave, slashing is real. This is a fuel system built for infrastructure, not gambling. Now let's be honest about price behavior. In the short term, unlocks can create headwinds. That's just supply math. More liquid tokens mean more potential sell pressure. In the long term, value depends on something much simpler. Are people actually using EigenCloud? Are AVSs launching and paying for security? Does verifiable compute and data become a real need? If yes, demand grows organically. If no, no token model can save it. So here's the bottom line. EigenCloud's tokenomics are boring by design. No inflation spiral, no surprise mints, no gimmicks. Just a controlled fuel system meant to support a long-lived engine. That's not exciting for speculators, but it's exactly what you want when something is trying to sit underneath other people's money, data, and compute. All right, before we close the hood, we need to see who else is actually on the track, because EigenCloud isn't racing memes, it's racing infrastructure. At a high level, EigenCloud sits in a rare lane. Most projects are trying to win one category. EigenCloud is trying to sit under multiple categories as the trust layer they all rely on. You've got modular infrastructure players like Celestia that focus on data availability, powerful tech, but they still create new trust assumptions and new validator economics. You've got shared security ecosystems like Cosmos and Polkadot. Those work well inside their own worlds, but they ask developers to migrate into a new universe with new tooling and new rules. EigenCloud takes a different approach. It doesn't ask you to move. It says keep your system, keep your stack, just anchor your trust to Ethereum through EigenLayer. Then you've got Ethereum native infrastructure, rollups, sequencers, middleware. Most of these are complements, not competitors, but they're often single-purpose tools. EigenCloud is trying to coordinate all of that. Data, compute, services, verification under one security umbrella. And then there's the emerging frontier. Verifiable compute and AI. Most AI systems today run on blind trust. You don't really know what ran, what data was used, or whether the output is clean. EigenCloud is positioning itself where crypto meets provable truth. Not hype AI, but systems where you can actually check the work. That's the big bet. EigenCloud isn't trying to beat everyone. It's trying to be the layer everyone eventually plugs into. That's harder. But if it works, it's stickier. Which brings us to the clock on the wall. All right, Lulu just handed me the dyno sheet, so let me paint the picture of the world we're in right now and why these numbers matter. Crypto isn't a toy anymore. It's turning into a global asset class that trades 24/7 while the rest of the financial world sleeps. Banks are circling, institutions are buying exposure, governments are writing rules, and the whole market is slowly shifting from casino coins to real infrastructure, the kind of plumbing that everything else runs on. That's the backdrop. Right now, total crypto market cap is about $2.95 trillion. EigenCloud's market cap is about $196 million, and the token is trading around 40 cents. That means EigenCloud's share of the total market today is roughly 0.0066%. That's the slice of the pie it has in the current world, right now, today. So Lulu runs 4 lanes from that baseline. Lane 1, same dominance. If EigenCloud just keeps the same slice of the market as crypto grows, then in a bigger cycle, say total crypto reaches $20 trillion, EigenCloud scales to around $1.3 billion in market cap. That's not hype. That's just the whole ocean rising and the boat floating higher. Lane 2 gains traction. If infrastructure becomes the main story, if builders and protocols actually choose EigenCloud for verifiable services, and the ecosystem proves it under load, Lulu puts it in the $5 billion to $10 billion zone. That's EigenCloud taking real share, not just riding the tide. Lane 3, moonshot. Low probability, high impact. If EigenCloud becomes the standard trust layer, the default plumbing under verifiable services and compute, Lulu models $15 billion to $30 billion. That requires it to multiply its share several times over, but that's the upside lane if it becomes essential. Lane 4, black swan. If something breaks, slashing event, regulatory pressure, a design flaw, or competitors eating the stack faster, Lulu says it compresses back down toward $50 million to $100 million. That's the world where confidence cracks and the market stops paying up for the story. Quick footnote from Lulu, unlocks matter. If circulating supply grows a lot, price per token can lag even if market cap rises, because the same value gets sliced into more pieces. Now Lulu drops the dyno scores 1 to 10. Technology, 9 out of 10. Team and execution, a perfect 5 out of 10. Okay, product progress, it's 8 out of 10. Tokenomics, the fuel system, 7.5 out of 10. Adoption today, 6.5 out of 10. Narrative and timing, 8.5 out of 10. She averages it out and lands EigenCloud at about a 7.9 out of 10 overall. Her verdict, built right, early high upside if infrastructure wins. All right, that wraps up today's token teardown. We put EigenCloud on the lift, checked the engine, looked at the risks, ran the dyno, and called it straight. No hype, no fluff. If you've got a project you want us to throw on the lift next, drop it in the comments. It might be the next teardown. Smash like, hit follow, and share this with your fellow degens. We're building this garage one project at a time. And remember, this is not financial advice. It's just a bunch of degens. A research animal, and Lulu the pig, trying to make sense of where crypto's actually going. We'll see you next time in the garage. Engine's hot, safety off, let it rip.